Something out there in space has been watching us, and yesterday it finally spoke. For months, scientists dismissed the faint signals from 3I/ATLAS as nothing more than space noise, random blips, harmless static drifting through the void. Nobody paid much attention, until a new AI system decided to take a closer look. At first it was just a calibration test. The AI was fed the clean noise from 3I/ATLAS to see if it could detect patterns elsewhere. No one expected anything, but within hours, the AI found something impossible. The signals weren't random, they weren't noise, they were structured, they were messages. The patterns repeated with perfect precision, like a carefully written code. And when researchers examined what the AI had uncovered, they realized it wasn't trying to talk to us. It wasn't a friendly hello, a mathematical puzzle, or a cosmic greeting. It was something far more unsettling, a detailed report on Earth, designed for someone else entirely. It knew where our satellites were. It mapped our communication networks. It recorded population movements, strategic locations, and vulnerabilities we didn't even realize existed. And it had been doing it for decades. The discovery set off alarm bells around the world. Emergency meetings, classified intelligence briefings, top-secret protocols, everything suddenly escalated. The AI had unlocked a message that rewrites the way we think about our place in the universe. Tonight, we're diving into that message, exploring what it reveals about Earth and confronting a terrifying possibility. 3I/ATLAS isn't here to visit. It's here to observe, and someone, somewhere far beyond the stars, is listening. By the end of this video, you'll see why what was once ignored as space noise might be the most important signal humanity has ever received. The discovery happened by accident, which makes it even more chilling. MIT's Quantum Enhanced Signal Processing project had spent 2 years developing AI that could find patterns in chaos, the kind of subtle organization that human minds might miss completely. Think of it like this. Imagine someone hiding a secret message in what sounds like random piano notes. To your ears, it's just noise. But the right AI doesn't just hear the notes, it reads the hidden sheet music, the composition buried in the chaos. That's exactly what happened with 3I/ATLAS. We fed 6 months of radio data into the system, one team member later recalled. Expected it to confirm what we already knew, random thermal emissions from a chunk of space rock. Instead, the AI started flagging what it called structural anomalies. At first, they thought it was a bug. The AI was finding patterns where there shouldn't be any. But when they examined what the system had identified, the room fell silent. Nobody wanted to breathe. This shouldn't exist, but it did. The AI didn't just detect organization in the signals. It decoded them. Every piece of data was checked and double-checked, as if whoever sent it knew it couldn't afford mistakes traveling across the void of space. Like chapters in a book someone had written about us. The breakthrough came when the AI stopped treating the emissions as continuous signals and started reading them as discrete packages of information. Chunks of ordered data transmitted in perfect timing with error correction that ensured every bit arrived intact across millions of miles. The system processed everything in 4 hours, one programmer explained, his voice still shaky days later. 4 hours to decode 6 months of what we thought was meaningless noise. When we saw the results, we realized we'd been listening to someone's intelligence reports about Earth. The quantum computing allowed the AI to test millions of pattern possibilities simultaneously. When it found consistent structure across multiple approaches, it flagged the data for human review, and what the researchers discovered forced them to classify everything under the highest security protocols. This wasn't a natural phenomenon. This was engineered communication using techniques far more sophisticated than our own deep space transmissions. And what it contained was even more chilling. 47 distinct information packages, transmitted every 6.2 hours in a continuous cycle. Not greetings, not mathematical proofs, not attempts at peaceful contact, but intelligence reports. detailed surveillance, a complete assessment of Earth's capabilities, weaknesses, and strategic value. Every light switched on, every conversation, every secret someone thought was hidden, it had all been observed, catalogued, and analyzed by an intelligence far beyond our own. The first 12 packets read like something from our own intelligence agencies. Every major radio transmitter on Earth mapped and catalogued, military radar installations, communication hubs, satellite networks, all identified with coordinates precise enough to target individual buildings. It mapped our satellites like someone holding a camera over every city. It knew our power grids, our military bases, even hidden facilities most of us didn't know existed. But that was just the beginning. Packets 13 through 23 contained population analysis that made census experts go pale. Not just numbers, but patterns. Traffic flows in cities, seasonal migration of populations, economic activity indicators that governments don't publish. Data that humans only notice after years of careful study. And someone, or something, already had it all. One packet showed how populations shift during holidays, how traffic patterns change during emergencies, how people move when their governments tell them to evacuate. Information you'd need if you wanted to predict human behavior on a massive scale. The military assessment packets were even worse. Nuclear weapons storage facilities identified and classified by threat level. Missile defense capabilities analyzed and rated. Naval bases, command centers, strategic installations, all catalogued like items in a shopping list. It found our weak spots, one analyst admitted during a classified briefing. Power grid vulnerabilities, internet choke points, supply chain dependencies, everything you'd need to cause maximum chaos with minimum effort. Think about that for a moment. Someone had been studying us like specimens in a lab, identifying exactly where to apply pressure to make human civilization collapse. The final packets contained the most disturbing revelation of all. Historical data stretching back decades, communication patterns from the 1990s, technology development timelines, evidence of systematic observation that began before most of us were born. We weren't discovering them. They had been watching us grow up. And the method of observation was just as precise. The signal wasn't broadcasting aimlessly across space like a distress beacon or a greeting. It was targeted, deliberate, like shining a flashlight on a single spot in the vast darkness. Every transmission cycle lasted exactly 6.2 hours, the same as 3I/ATLAS's rotation period, revealing that the object had a directional antenna system locked on a specific target with every spin, reporting directly back to some unknown headquarters. But the most unsettling discovery was the pauses. Every few hours, the transmission would stop for precisely 18 minutes. During those gaps, sensitive equipment detected faint signals coming from deep space in return. 3I/ATLAS wasn't just sending reports, it was receiving new instructions. Picture that scene. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, something was reading detailed intelligence about Earth and sending back orders. Every pause in the signal was like waiting for a reply, a quiet question from the cosmos answered by voices we couldn't hear. The error correction in these transmissions was more sophisticated than our most advanced deep space communication systems. Every packet contained redundant data and verification codes that allowed the receiving system to detect and correct any errors from the journey across light years. They weren't just talking across impossible distances, they were doing it with perfect clarity. The target of these transmissions appeared to be a precise location 12.7 light-years away in the direction of constellation Lyra. Not a star system we recognized, but coordinates so exact they suggested a technological installation rather than a natural destination. The power needed to send these messages across light years would dwarf everything we've ever built. It wasn't just advanced, it was unimaginable. Yet 3I/ATLAS showed no visible energy source capable of sustaining such communications. Either they had power sources beyond our comprehension, or they were using transmission methods operating on principles we hadn't discovered yet. Every 18-minute pause reminded us that this wasn't a one-way conversation. Something out there was listening, analyzing, and responding to intelligence reports about Earth, and the question that kept everyone awake was simple. What were those responses saying? The implications hit the highest levels of human authority immediately. World leaders whispered in locked rooms, while the rest of humanity went on, oblivious. Intelligence networks scrambled. Emergency plans kicked in. The National Security Agency classified the decoded transmissions at levels reserved for nuclear secrets, and similar restrictions appeared across allied nations. Within hours, a small circle of officials found themselves managing humanity's first confirmed extraterrestrial intelligence crisis. This represents an intelligence compromise of unprecedented scope, one NSA official admitted during an emergency congressional briefing. A foreign intelligence service has conducted systematic surveillance of our most sensitive capabilities. The fact that this service appears to be non-human doesn't change the security implications. Think about the absurdity of that moment. Generals and intelligence directors trained to handle human adversaries suddenly planning defense against opponents who'd been studying Earth from space for decades using technology that made our best efforts look like stone tools. Emergency sessions convened in underground bunkers designed for nuclear war. The same facilities built to survive atomic bombs now hosted discussions about defending against civilizations that could cross between stars at will. Military commands worldwide received classified updates that fundamentally changed their strategic thinking. How do you defend against enemies who know your every weakness, possess overwhelming technological superiority, and can operate with complete impunity in your sovereign space? International cooperation reached levels not seen since World War II. Ancient rivalries were set aside as governments realized they faced threats that made human conflicts seem trivial. Intelligence agencies that had spent decades spying on each other began sharing their most guarded secrets. Meanwhile, outside those locked rooms, life continued normally. People went to work, watched movies, worried about ordinary problems, completely unaware that their governments were quietly implementing planetary defense protocols originally designed for science fiction scenarios. Communication security measures were upgraded overnight across all critical infrastructure. Military networks rolled out encryption designed to prevent interception by technologically superior adversaries. The assumption was simple: everything transmitted electronically should be considered potentially compromised. Deep underground facilities, originally meant to preserve government continuity during nuclear war, were restocked and staffed, not for atomic survival, but for the survival of the species in a universe that had suddenly become far more crowded and dangerous than anyone imagined. And yet all these precautions only underscored a more terrifying truth. Every weakness we once assumed was hidden, every private action, every classified secret, every signal we thought invisible had already been observed. Every move we made, every communication we sent, every pattern in our behavior had been catalogued and analyzed with precision. There was no accidental discovery, no casual observation. This was a deliberate, methodical effort to map humanity in its entirety. Every nuance of our existence had been recorded, and intelligence far beyond our own had taken careful note. This wasn't alien contact as we imagine it, curiosity, or a handshake across the stars. This was calculated, systematic, and unflinchingly observant. We were exposed, and someone, or something, was learning exactly who we are, how we function, and where we are most vulnerable. The systematic nature of the surveillance became increasingly clear as the data was decoded. It revealed a planning process that stretched across decades, possibly generations. This was not a random observation or a scientific experiment. It was a calculated intelligence operation aimed at understanding humanity at the deepest level. Every element of our technology, every milestone in our development had been watched and analyzed, not to learn about life on Earth in general, but to understand how to exploit our weaknesses, how to anticipate our actions, how to prepare for possible intervention. One military strategist captured the stark reality with a chilling comparison. Any conflict would be completely asymmetrical. We are essentially medieval knights facing modern mechanized armies. The technology gap renders traditional defense strategies meaningless. what we consider advanced weapons, would barely register against systems designed to anticipate our every move. The gap wasn't just in firepower, it was in comprehension, strategy, and foresight. Every standard tactic, every doctrine built over centuries would be obsolete in an instant. But the implications extended far beyond military strategy. The transmissions revealed that extraterrestrial intelligence had been monitoring human technological development throughout the digital age. They had tracked our progress from the earliest nuclear tests to the launch of global communication networks, from space exploration milestones to the rise of artificial intelligence. Every breakthrough, every innovation had been documented and analyzed as if to build a comprehensive understanding of human capability. This raised a haunting question for analysts. At what point had our civilization crossed the line from passive observation to active reconnaissance? When did they move from simply recording our progress to evaluating whether we posed a threat or a potential resource? The question itself was enough to unsettle anyone who had access to the data. Around the world, research priorities began to shift quietly, almost imperceptibly. Budgets were reallocated, sometimes secretly, to focus on projects aimed at understanding, replicating, or countering what had been observed. Scientists found themselves tasked with reverse engineering principles gleaned from the three I/ATLAS data: propulsion systems that defied known physics, communication methods that operated beyond our technological norms. One research director, speaking under strict confidentiality, explained the urgency. We're essentially trying to leap from the Stone Age to the Space Age in a matter of years. The level of technological advancement required may exceed what human civilization can realistically accomplish before they decide to act. The pressure was immense, and the stakes were existential. Economic consequences were quietly unfolding. Defense contractors were receiving unprecedented black budget funding for projects that, until now, sounded like science fiction. Underground research facilities expanded rapidly. Key personnel were issued relocation orders they could not discuss with their families. Governments were quietly preparing for contingencies that, if leaked, could have sparked global panic. The psychological dimension was equally profound. Social scientists warned that public knowledge of extraterrestrial surveillance could have destabilizing effects. Humanity had long wondered whether we were alone in the universe. Now, the confirmation that we had been observed, studied, analyzed, understood by a technologically superior intelligence would fundamentally challenge our sense of self and our perception of our place in the cosmos. We've gone from believing we might someday discover aliens to knowing they have been studying us like laboratory specimens, one sociologist observed. The psychological adjustment for society as a whole will be profound. It will challenge assumptions built into every aspect of our civilization, from politics to philosophy to daily life. Perhaps the most unsettling discovery from the surveillance data was the depth of understanding exhibited by these observers. They knew us, our psychology, our social structures, our strategic thinking, even our likely responses to crises. Every strength, every weakness had been mapped. They understood which vulnerabilities could be exploited, which social or political structures could be destabilized, and where minimal effort could produce maximum disruption. This was not neutral observation. This intelligence could manipulate, disrupt, or control us with surgical precision. Every societal pattern, every technological system, every human instinct had been accounted for. Humanity was not simply being watched. We were being studied, prepared for a level of interaction we had never anticipated and perhaps might not survive. And now, time was running out. 36 days, not 36 days of safety, not 36 days of calm, not 36 days to take comfort in routine. 36 days under relentless observation, under the gaze of intelligence operating from the darkness between stars. Every plan we make, every move we execute, every calculated decision, every mistake, every pattern, already catalogued, already analyzed, already transmitted, back to entities whose reach, capability, and understanding far exceed our own. Nothing we do is unseen. Nothing we do is private. and every shred of our behavior may carry consequences we are only beginning to grasp. Deep space monitoring stations, the frontline observers of this silent cosmic presence, detected something that made every seasoned operator's blood run cold. Electromagnetic readings from 3I/ATLAS spiked in a way unprecedented in its recorded behavior. The energy signatures suggested preparation for a transmission of immense power, operations that would dwarf every intelligence report previously intercepted, every anomaly previously observed. The silent messenger was preparing for something far larger than anyone had anticipated. It's powering up systems that have been dormant throughout the observation period, one monitoring station operator reported, voice taut with tension. Whatever it's preparing to transmit at mission completion will require significantly more energy than anything we've ever seen from this object. This is no ordinary signal. This is something on a scale we can barely quantify. Around the globe, international intelligence agencies work tirelessly. Analysts, cryptographers, strategists, and technicians operated in shifts, decoding, predicting, and simulating every possible transmission scenario before 3I/ATLAS departed our solar system. The prevailing assumption, these final communications would contain completed intelligence assessments, directives, and recommendations for whatever came next, whether that be interaction, observation, or some action against humanity itself. The final report will tell us whether they have classified humanity as a threat to eliminate, a resource to exploit, or a curiosity to study further. One strategic assessment team leader whispered, eyes glued to the screens. The answer will determine our species' immediate future. Every word, every pause, every new pattern observed in the signal could carry monumental consequences, and the weight of that knowledge was suffocating. Emergency protocols were activated worldwide. Underground facilities stocked for long-term isolation. Critical personnel relocated to fortified sites, following continuity of government procedures rehearsed in drills but never tested against a threat of this magnitude. Every precaution was taken, every contingency planned, but the sense of security was fragile. Against an intelligence with detailed knowledge of our defensive capabilities, these measures could be rendered meaningless. The enemy, or observer, knew precisely how to counter each line of defense, anticipate every step, and exploit every weakness. The transmission from 3I/ATLAS was not continuous. It paused every 18 minutes, each silence indicating ongoing communication with whoever or whatever was receiving the data. Each pause was a calculated interval, a checkpoint in an intricate process of reporting and updating mission parameters. Real-time intelligence about human responses was being fed back, analyzed, and incorporated into the next set of instructions. They're not just cataloging our capabilities, one intelligence analyst remarked quietly. They're measuring our ability to respond, our adaptability, our readiness. This suggests they're planning operations that account for human resistance, that anticipate human unpredictability, and adjust accordingly. Everything we do, every strategy, every defensive maneuver is already being evaluated. Consider the perspective of 3I/ATLAS and its operators. 36 days to complete surveillance, compile recommendations, and transmit a comprehensive intelligence assessment to command structures operating across interstellar distances. Each passing day brought them closer to mission completion, closer to whatever decision would follow. Every 18-minute pause, every spike in electromagnetic energy, every pattern observed in the transmission added another layer of insight into our civilization, another step toward understanding, another opportunity to evaluate humanity's strengths and vulnerabilities. The most chilling possibility was that 3I/ATLAS represented only the first phase of a multi-stage operation. The intelligence it collected would serve as the foundation for whatever came next, whether that meant peaceful contact, systematic exploitation, or something far more ominous. The uncertainty was suffocating because the data was incomplete, the intentions unknowable, and the intelligence we were attempting to interpret operated on scales we were only beginning to comprehend. We cannot know what comes next, We do not know whether they will leave, return, or act. But the clock is ticking, not in the familiar cadence of Earth days, but according to the rotation cycles of an alien intelligence, guided by motives and calculations far beyond human experience. 36 days remain to discover whether humanity has been selected for contact, for conquest, or for elimination. The answer, concealed within transmissions we are still desperately attempting to decode, lies in the minds of beings capable of orchestrating intelligence operations across unimaginable distances, with patience and precision we can barely fathom.